Welcome to the Development Book Club. Today we begin a new book, which is Dare to Lead by Brené Brown. I've actually picked up the British version by a good friend, Sean, sent it to me. We will hop right in today to the introduction and the first half of the first section. She begins by saying that she defines a leader as anyone who takes responsibility for finding potential in people and processes and has the courage to develop that potential. So responsible for finding potential in people and processes and the courage to develop that potential. She wants to write a book that will change how the reader thinks about leading, would result in at least one meaningful behavioral change, and can be read cover to cover in one flight. I'm not sure if I can read this in one flight, depending on the flight, I guess. As far as the barriers to leadership, she says that, quote, as long as we name them, stay curious, and keep showing up, they don't have the power to stop us from being brave, unquote. Courage, Brené says, is a collection of 4 skill sets that can be taught, observed, and measured. Number 1, rumbling with vulnerability. 2, living into our values. 3, braving trust. And 4, learning to rise. We will cover in this video just the first half of what she calls rumbling with vulnerability, which is, we'll talk about more starting right now. It's sitting with a discomfort, maybe is another way to say that. Sitting and responding appropriately with discomfort. All right, so she speaks with about the 6 myths of vulnerability and refutes them all, which she says vulnerability is weakness. And then she asks, if vulnerability is weakness, then can you name a time when courage did not require vulnerability? Those are called a risk, right? Someone saying, I don't do vulnerability, a second myth. Growing up, despite what we thought as kids, despite how we felt as younger kids, is actually accepting vulnerability. I can go it alone or do it alone. And she cites neurobiology, the idea of our language is fundamentally a relational concept, and the idea of mirror neurons and empathy. This tells us that we are social animals that should go together. She notices also a tendency to engineer the uncertainty and discomfort out of vulnerability. And she states that there can be a lack of systemic vulnerability that keeps planes in the sky, which is good, but relational vulnerability must be present for success. 5th myth, trust comes before vulnerability. She says that trust is the stacking and layering of small moments of reciprocal vulnerability over time. Trust and vulnerability grow together, and to betray one is to destroy both. And then she talks about vulnerability as disclosure. It's not just simply disclosing uncomfortable things, she states. There's more to it than that, and we'll cover that. She includes the following insight when discussing opening up with one of her favorite, what she calls rumble tools. And she asks, what does support for me look like? And she later includes another cool verbal intervention, which is to say more to somebody, which is actually a command and is a great way to open up conversation or to have the conversation continue to open up. She notes that people will struggle to come up with examples because we're much more accustomed to not asking for exactly what we need and then being resentful and disappointed that we didn't get what we needed. Also, most of us can tell you what kind of support we don't want or what support doesn't look like a lot more easy than we can come up with what it does look like. Additionally, vulnerability must come with boundaries, crystal clear expectations of what is and is not okay. If not, then it's just confession, manipulation, and desperation, or what she calls shock and awe. Let me speak more about the crystal clear expectations. She says that being clear is kind, and being unclear is unkind. If there are expectations, it is unkind to somebody to just be vague about them and not really tell a person what you need. Part 2, the call to courage. And the goal here is to better understand how fear and feelings left unattended can cause major problems. She talks about Joseph Campbell and his quote about the treasure that you seek is in the cave that you fear to enter, or the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. She tells us this great story of Colonel D.D. Halfhill. He was speaking at her post to thousands of airmen on a U.S. Air Force base. They all reported being tired. Several of them reported feeling tired. And she spoke about an article, in response to this, she spoke about an article that she read that tiredness is usually a mask for loneliness. When she asked everyone who was lonely, like raise your hand if you're lonely instead of tired, she was very uncomfortable. She said to them this, which is great. Several raised their hand, and you would suspect that many more people were uncomfortable and lonely and did not raise their hands. She says, "This breaks my heart." This is an admiral in the U.S. Air Force. "This breaks my heart. Loneliness isn't something I've talked about with you before. But seeing so many of you raise your hands today scares me a little because I'm not entirely sure what to do with this information." Big vulnerability. As a leader, if you tell me you're tired, I'm going to send you home. Tell you to take some leave, to take some time away and get some rest. But if what's really going on is you're lonely, then sending you off to be by yourself yet again means that I could possibly exacerbate the very problem we are so desperately trying to combat in our Air Force, which is that some people are so out of hope, feeling so isolated, that they are doing something irreversible. And that is a difficult thing to talk about, and she brought it up in front of this huge crowd of military. Brown ends this section by stating that in these tough conversations, it's okay to leave space for silence. It's okay. There's a great quote to finish this section up. She says that leaders have a choice. They can either invest a reasonable amount of time attending to fears and feelings, or squander an unreasonable amount of time trying to manage ineffective and unproductive behavior. The recognition is there is that we are emotional beings with fears and many feelings. We can attend to those and see if they are having their needs met, or we can not and spend much more time attending to managing ineffective and unproductive behavior. Next time we will continue with Rumbling with Vulnerability, the second half, talking about managing with the heart and a few others.